All right. So, my new kind of strategy for my channel, I think it's been actually helping out a bit. Now if I can only get internet that works properly. Oh, it's so slow right now. It's like slow at the hall, it's slow at the house here. I don't know what's going on. It's very unreliable internet. But anyway, that said, it doesn't mean I can't get information out to you guys. I guess when it comes to the World War III thing, when it rains, it pours kind of thing, and like my hat. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so I'll just jump into it. And anyway, yeah, there's quite a bit going on. Yeah, so we have 11 Afghani soldiers missing as international troops. Now these guys, they came in a couple of months ago or whatever to the States as foreign exchange troops. Basically, these guys are come to the States. They're part of the Iraqi military. They're going to basically train up and then go back to Iraq. And 11 of them, I don't know how many there was in total, but 11 of them, they're somewhere in the States. They went AWOL. So yeah, so on your next attack, think of them. S&P 500, 6 quarters negative. Now, again, I'm not a financial guy. I don't really, and sometimes people ask me, Reg, do you recommend gold, silver, and so that? I'm more of a bread and bullets type of guy. I don't make the recommendations because I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I can really go wrong with bread and bullets type, food and ammunition, because I know ammunition is always tradable. Ammunition will probably have 130-06 shell will probably have more value than a gold bar when people are starving to death, right? So, I can go into the bush, load my rifle, drop a deer, feed myself, providing I can find a deer. What am I going to do with a gold bar? Yeah, you can kill a deer with a gold bar. I'm sure it's heavy enough, but you can't get too close. You know what I mean? That heavy. So bread and bullets is kind of, I know the common man will trade on that. That said, for people invested in these big Fortune 500 companies, now, myself, the only investments I got was from, not my last job, but the few jobs before that. The company I worked for, they had a deferred profit sharing, and you couldn't touch it until you retired. And so that's still in there. Now, I'm not counting on that at all to be there, when I retire. To give you just to give you an idea, like I can't touch it, so it's not money I have, it's locked in till 65 or 64 or whatever year it's locked into. When I left the company, I had $25,000 over 7.5 years saved up. Now, it's not that I saved it up; it's the profit sharing thing that I was talking about. They took. And they did this for every person in the company. They'd take a proportion of the profit sharing, and they'd give you a nice bonus in cash, but they would, because the owner was like, people take the cash, they're going to go blow it on whatever, but they won't save for the retirement. So it was kind of, think of the company kind of saving you from yourself. It's like, no, we're going to lock this in so you can't touch it till you retire. So we'll be thanking them when we retire if we would have been if the economy was the way it was. So anyway, that's in there. So from $25,000, it's now down to 18. So it's it's not doing quite so well. Now I did make one withdrawal that I was able to make with it, and you can make like one withdrawal a year, I think, with it. And, there was the proportion that I could withdraw, I already took out, because I was like, well, if I'm going to lose it all anyway, at least if by some miracle chance it's going to be there when I'm in the future, that'd be great. But another 6 quarters down, how much more does it drop? Again, people's retirement, the stock market, the banks, that's what they're doing, is they're ripping your retirement away. Yeah, with bail-ins and bailouts. And if you haven't seen what's going on with Deutsche Bank and all that stuff, that all plays into the war. That's why we're getting into the wars, because these things are insolvent, right? October surprise. I did a video on the October surprise. Don't know if it already came out yet or not. But I did October surprise, or what surprise, or whatever. Or, I can't remember what it is. October surprise, I think it's also called it. And, I mean, if you're not surprised at the stuff you're seeing now, I don't know what could possibly surprise you. I mean, we're already in a world of lunacy. Like, I just don't remember ever seeing anything in my time, or even reading about this kind of bizarreness, even in history. Like, the stuff that's going on is just, it's new. It does seem kind of new, which keeps it interesting. I don't really care what's happening on the mainstream media at all. Like, I might watch the odd TV show once in a while. The TV's more for my dad. My dad watches TV. I watch the internet, But there's not a show I could find on TV that's as interesting as reality. And the scary part is that how scary reality can actually be. But anyway, moving along. So the October surprise, there's so many angles that could be taken from. Will something happen? I don't know. I don't like to say stuff like that because, there's going to be a false flag in October. Because you don't know, and I don't think everything we see is a false flag. I think a lot of it is orchestrated, sure. But there's a lot of it, I think, is just blowback, like Ron Paul was talking about. I mean, again, if somebody bombed your family, you're going to take up arms in revenge against that. You're not going to see it as, thank you for your democracy, JDAMs. Of course you're going to take up arms in revenge. You're not going to be cared if you're called a terrorist. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to matter. All you want to do is avenge your family, and really that's it's a predictable response. So I think anything's possible, and then of course with all the divide and conquer, that part you could, if you go into the long con of it, yes, it's all false flags. I mean, these terrorist attacks and stuff like that wouldn't happen if they didn't arm the terrorists in the first place, if they didn't bomb other people's countries in the first place with the blowback. Like, it's all orchestrated. They know this is going to happen, and they assess this stuff before they do it. So it is a problem, reaction, solution. So could lead to an October surprise, a December surprise, a November surprise. All I say is that we're just living in interesting times. Be ready for anything at any time, right? Moving along, Obama has now spent way more on the nuclear arsenal in history. Nobel Peace Prize winners also created more war than anybody else. Now, that said, I don't know why my handwriting's so... I write this thing when I'm in the car. I gotta get a good clipboard. I don't have to do that. Anyway, I don't know what I wrote there. But yeah, so we see the ramping up of the nuclear weapons. Like, I mean, even under the Bush years, as bad as Bush was for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, starting all that stuff. On one front, the nuclear, agreement that they had, and George Bush Sr. had with Gorbachev, to limit both sides to 1,600 delivery vehicles max, air, land, or sea, in case of a nuclear war, was a step in the right direction. Obviously, 1,600 vehicles is one Typhoon sub can smash half the planet, and there's 6 of those, or 5 of those, I think, still left. They're not in service right now, but I mean, mothballed to service is 600 hours of labor. The thing's probably back in the water, tip-top shape. Which you throw men at it until the thing is in floating angry mode again. That type of thing. So it was a step in the right. It was better than unlimited. 1,600 is better than unlimited. But 16 vehicles or 16 nuclear weapons max would be better than 50,000 nukes or whatever. Nobody knows what's on the planet. It's beyond fathomable and beyond the point of insanity, for sure. The U.S. suspending diplomacy in Syria. Basically, they're no longer going to negotiate with the Russians. This is also does seem to be a lot of stuff happening on the Russian side in response to this. Of course, none of it on the mainstream media. None of it on the mainstream media whatsoever. But what's going on in Russia today, as of the making of this video, again, bizarre things that we're seeing, right? And I'll get to that. But the Syrian thing, this is, I think, the stepping stone to get us into a direct war with Russia. You don't see it today. You see it weeks down the road, months down the road, a year down the road, whatever it is. That's when you see things. You have to understand, decisions that are made today, again, they know it's going, if we did suspend diplomacy in a war zone, we know it's going to lead to more war. You even had General Dunsford there, if you haven't seen the video on that, it was on RT. He's being interviewed, talking about the no-fly zone in Syria, and he goes, well, to enforce the no-fly zone means direct conflict with Russia. And he kind of sounded like he was like, yeah, we're not going to do that, like that. That's crazy. But the thing is he might be sounding kind of sane and rational, but the people like Kerry and the people above him are not sane and rational. These people believe they can have a thermonuclear war, go to their bunkers, wait out the strikes, become a new Adam and Eve, and come up and start the whole system over again. That's the way these people think. These people are completely insane. And the thing is they sound rational when they're talking to you about it. Oh yeah, we're just going to light nukes off in the desert. Like, we're going to nuke ISIS. There is no reason to use a nuclear weapon against the terrorists. It's just not needed whatsoever. The only things nukes are good for is clearing land. That's it, is killing mass populations. You don't need nukes. Conventional bombs work just fine against terrorists. Rifle bullets work just fine against terrorists. Cutting their funding works excellent against terrorists. Cutting the weapon supplies work excellent against terrorists. So we have options before we can just, I think that what it is people just want to say that, yeah, I got to push the button on the nuke. But these things, you don't just throw them around the planet like that. Even in the middle of the desert. Yes, the radiation, we don't feel it today, but 6 months or 6 years later, we got babies with 3 heads. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable how these, where's the sanity? It was good that during that last debate, if there was one thing, whether you were left wing or right wing, right now, and I'm laughing, right now with Donald Trump, they're going after him for his financial records. But here's the kicker. They're trying to make it sound like this big scandal, right? But the problem is, he took advantage of a legal law and followed through with it. There's no scandal. There's no scandal. It's, oh yeah, he declared bankruptcy and he could have used that to not pay taxes for the rest of his life. Okay, but he took advantage of the law. Even Rudy Giuliani, who I'm not a big fan of, he's better than what the other guy was, but he's out there, well, yeah, everything's legal. Tons of people are doing it. Tons of these Wall Street moguls are doing it. So Donald Trump is not he's not a rare coin here. He's not a gem. He's not he's not a unicorn on this one. He's with the herd on this one. It's funny how the media tries to spin it to make it sound like a scandal. I'll put it to you this way: today, the little girl went and picked up a flower to bring home to her mom. Mainstream media spin. Today, a little girl picked up a flower to bring home to her mom. Makes it sound like a scandal. Wasn't that a nice thing? But you know what I mean? So it's how they spin it, right? And it's like, try to make it sound like a scandal when it isn't. But anyway, I digress. But the diplomacy in Syria and something else. Now remember, again, don't be afraid to go over some of my older World War III updates, because sometimes the stuff we talk about back then, we're seeing now. The rumors just keep coming true. There was rumors earlier on in the year or late last year of Israel lighting off dirty nukes in the desert. Just lighting them off. Can't confirm that one. However, we do know about, in 2010, the missing 6 nukes from Dreyfus Air Force Base, one of which was reported to by several different people. Again, whether it's true or not, take it with a grain of salt. But we do know that one may have been 600 miles off the coast of Charleston, detonated under the oceans. The Russians picked it up as a seismic activity as a nuke and said, yes, they detonated a nuke under the ocean. And that was basically a coup. They got one nuke away. Who knows where the rest of them are? Maybe all of them are tied together, and they let one off to blow up all of them. Who knows? That would be nice if that happened to a degree. But then again, I really don't want to see nukes lighting off at all. I'd rather you hurl them into the space and hurl them into the sun, rather than blowing them up anywhere on Earth, under the water, under the ground. I don't care. Nuclear detonations has consequences, whether you drop it on populations or not. It's radiation. It's radioactivity. It kills things. That said, those are still missing, and there's 5 out of the 6 might still be somewhere. What we can confirm is that they did go missing. It was even on the mainstream media. However, it's like that Israeli submarine that went missing. Did they ever find it? It had nukes on it too. This was about a year, maybe 2009, 2010. All kinds of nukes have walked off of bases and stuff like that. These weapons just should not exist. They're not going to fall into the wrong hands. They're already in the wrong hands to begin with. It's just, which pair of wrong hands are they in? That's really the question when it comes to nuclear weapons. We don't need them. The nuclear deterrent, you can still have ICBMs with conventional fuel air bombs and stuff like that. So, okay, yeah, sure, you'll blow the shit out of the cities. You might have to launch double the amount of ICBMs as a deterrent. It'll do the same destruction. It's just it won't be as followed. Now, they say newer thermonuclear weapons burn a lot cleaner and that there's little to no radiation. Little to no radiation is kind of an understatement because, an overstatement because, overstatement or understatement? Yeah, they're understating it. They're understating. Because what they mean by little radiation is, okay, well, it won't pollute all the country. It'll just pollute that area. You won't be able to go back there for 25,000 years. Yeah. But anyway, the other rumor now is that the nukes that are reported to be going around in Syria are coming from Turkey. Which, considering the radicalness of Erdogan, I would not be... this one, again, take it with a grain of salt. But I would think that would be probably accurate. So who knows? Who are they going to nuke? The only people that it doesn't make sense for Turkey to nuke ISIS. It doesn't even make sense for ISIS to nuke Assad's guys. Like, no one's going to care around the world to be, oh, well, that's terrible. You know, like, that's, and it would be terrible. It would be terrible. No, that nuke has to be used against, that will be a false flag. They're going to use it against Israel. That's, or maybe Saudi Arabia, one or the other. Maybe Oman, Qatar, possibly, but Israel or Saudi Arabia is going to get nuked. And it will be by Turkey. They will blame it on Assad, the Russians, the Chinese. They'll blame it on everybody else. The Iranians. I think they would blame it on the Iranians first. That's what the nuke would be for. It wouldn't be for, they wouldn't even use it against Iran. No, that's it's counterintuitive. It just, you know, you'll make Iran look like a victim. You know what I mean? And world, you have to understand, the world elites don't care about the little people, but they do know that they can lose power if they lose the military. If the military comes to their senses and say, we're not fighting these wars anymore, you can order us, we're not going. And it's going to take not one guy, but tons of guys. And there are some standouts. One of the litmus tests, one guy, he spent, I forget, like 6 months in the brig for this, I think, or something like that, for when they asked, it was a whole bunch of guys in a row, and again, it's the penguin effect that I talk about. And if you're one of these guys, military guys, you know, you're going to sacrifice your career doing this for sure. But when they asked a soldier, he was like 19 or 21, this was in, I guess, around 2010, 2011, they asked this U.S. soldier, you know, will you guys open fire on the citizens? Well, he put his rifle on the ground ahead of him and stepped back. And the rest of his guys there did the same. That's the example. That's leading by example. That is a constant soldier. Just following orders is not a good soldier. You have to make sure that these orders are just. Now, in the heat of battle, okay, go here, go there, do this, do that. Okay, I understand that. You need to be able to follow orders. But when they're telling you have to go to war to an enemy that, you know, why is Farm Boy A shooting at Farm Boy B? Because somebody in the government said so. And the world elites, their kids aren't going to, if they believed in these wars, the first people on the line would be the, you know, with the exception of Prince Harry, I think you're not going to see anybody on the front lines. Prince Harry is going to be, you know, and I think William was flying Apaches or something like that, and Harry was in the tanks. But I think it's because Prince Harry wanted to go blow shit up with a tank. Now, how close did he get to the combat? That I don't know. But, you know, that's more like Edward of the Black Prince, Prince Edward, that type of thing. The guy liked combat. He liked jousting. He liked the fight. Nobody wanted to fight him because he was royalty, right? But so that's why he showed up in this black armor, kind of as, you know, we know who's in the armor, but it's anonymous. And some people, nobody would joust him. Everybody would always stand down once they found out who he was. So he'd go in all these places to get into these jousting matches and stuff like that to compete, because it's not he wanted to be a part of the common people, but he wanted to live a little, you know what I mean? And that was the Black Prince. So it's Prince Harry, he is from that lineage, so it's not uncommon that some of them might do that. I'm not giving him a ringing endorsement. I'm saying out of all the world elites, there's not going to be too many that are actually going to want to be on the front line, especially the ones that know that the wars are a scam to begin with. But that said, the common man, that jarhead or grunt, and if you don't know what grunt means, look it up. It's really funny. I can say it because I'm not in the government. And I heard this from so many Canadian soldiers that, yeah, these are all grunts. You know, the grunts. I said, what's grunt? Government reject, not unfit for training. Yeah, grunt. Yeah, it's like, I love it. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, these are the guys that are really going to save the country. That said. So, moving on. Remember, always do the right thing, right? This was kind of cool. This one's a bit Star Warsy. Now, we know the Russians did a test a couple of months ago from making this video. I've already covered it, where they fired off missiles to shoot down satellites, and they were successful. So that's phase one of their anti-satellite kind of. Obviously, they're going to have anti-satellite jamming devices. They're going to have missiles to shoot down satellites. Obviously, the Russians, their number one strategy, if war breaks out, is to shoot down satellites, blind the enemy. That's number one, blind the enemy. That's always number one, is blind the enemies. If you can't see, you can't fight. This is why the Russians have been working on the Ratnik, which is not dependent on satellite technology. It works like it, but it's not dependent. So if you had like a squadron of F-16s coming in, okay, a squadron of them, and you could shoot down within, say, 50 miles of an S-300 or an S-400 or an S-500 missile system, and there was an AWAC at just the bare envelope of the S-500 missile system, they would go for the AWAC first. Why? Because the F-16s, okay, even if they take out the S-400 missile system, that AWAC is what allowed them to find it. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So satellites, AWACS, those are electronics, the high-tech stuff like that is gone after the first 2 weeks, max. But back in the 90s, Boeing, probably even earlier than that, but they had a Boeing 747 with a laser on it. And it works to a degree. I mean, it's the same with the laser ship that's sitting off the coast of Iran. I don't know if it's still there or not. It doesn't work in the fog. It doesn't work well in certain conditions. And there's only so many shots you get. But basically, the idea was this was part of the Ronald Reagan Star Wars program to basically use laser beams to shoot down incoming ICBMs, which the concept is brilliant because, you know, you could shoot from the Earth to the atmosphere and into outer space, vaporize the thing coming in before it, you know, could do any damage. So you could take out the warheads, which would make nuclear weapons pretty much obsolete. Now, there are people out there that keep saying, Reg, nuclear weapons are a sham. There are no nuclear weapons. I don't know about that. The physics seem to work. Have I ever seen a nuke myself? No. But just look at the daisy cutters, the fuel air bombs that are out there. These things leave mushroom clouds. Look, the previous Russian training exercise, just the beach landings with their training weapons leaves mushroom clouds. Look, I mean, and these are not even close to but no, I believe in atomic energy. I do believe that it exists. There's no doubt about that. You know, the natural elements of uranium and plutonium, and you know, basically creating the fusion. I would really consider that yes, they do exist. But if you don't believe they exist, that's fine. I'm not going to debate you on that. But we're going to go with the assumption that they do. That said, with all that going on, well, it looks like the Russians have an IL-2, and their weapon is called the A-60 SE laser anti-satellite weapon, which is it's on a big IL-2, which is kind of like the IL-96, but a little bit different. 4-engine heavy lift aircraft, got a big ass laser on the bottom, and this laser has a range of 930 miles, not kilometers, miles. It's almost 1,000-mile range. They can detect the satellites because they know one thing about satellites. Even if you move them around, they have to stay in orbit. They don't really. They're all going to be coming from one direction, pretty much. You know, it's like they merge with the highway. They're going to go with the rotation, you know, of gravity with the Earth, right? And before the flat earthers started on me, so anyway, I'm not going to debate it with you. We're just going to go with that's the assumption. So. These satellites that come around, they know this satellite comes around at 2 o'clock, this satellite comes around at 6 o'clock, whatever. They're going to know that. Once they detect it and track it, they'll be able to track it from outer space. Anyway, from their satellites, they set up the laser beam, okay, they fly this thing to the ionosphere. I'm sure these things will go, you know, or at least the top of the stratosphere, maybe not to the ionosphere, but whatever. They're going to fly this big bird, probably have some special, you know, fuel, special, you know, they're obviously going to have oxygen pumped into the engine to combust the fuel, or they're going to have a special fuel that has oxygen in it. And there are fuels like that, diesel peroxide that they use in submarines. That way they don't have to snorkel. The fuel actually provides its own oxygen to burn. And when this happens, they get up there, they find the satellite, goodbye satellite. How many shots do they get? I don't know. How you know, if they can only fire like one every hour, or 3 shots, or 5 shots, whatever, I think it's the same problem Boeing have. It's not a very effective weapon in that sense, but it's an effective weapon in the sense of you've got further range than a missile. So the priority satellites they would probably use. There's not enough. I don't know if they have, you know, how many they have. I know the Russians have really been putting a lot of stuff on the laser weapons as well. The Chinese, they've got laser weapons, but not to the degree of the Russians or the Americans. But interesting times, I will say. Deutsche Bank, bank runs. The Deutsche Bank elites are telling their prominent clientele, pull your money, get into gold, get into silver, get out of, you know, pull your money out. They're telling them to take their money out now. Angela Merkel says she's not going to bail out Deutsche Bank and stuff like that. Yeah. I think she's saying that because, you she's so hated right now. It's not funny, but it's deserved. I mean, she's an evil person. Moving on to Hungary. Hungary had a 98% vote to reject the refugees from the EU. Basically, they're deciding. Now, the problem is they needed 51% to make this vote count. They got 46%. It was 46% turnout. That's actually a high turnout. They say that was a low turnout. Maybe for Hungary, that's a low turnout. That's a high turnout. So 46% of their voting population turned out. And I guess there was a bit of a vote split between two parties, which one should have seceded their vote to the other one. I mean, the left is doing this. They did this in France, so that Front National, well, they should do this in Hungary. Say we secede our vote to at least get the 51%. So Viktor Orban, is it Viktor Orban? Yeah, is he Poland or Hungary? I always get those two guys mixed up anyway. But anyway, he comes out and says, well, and this guy's going to be able to do it too. Find me one referendum where you get 98% approval on anything. This is like, okay, 46% of the population, okay, with that other probably remaining 4.1%, who are probably just voted for the other party status, which is kind of aligned with this ideology. And the other 49% of the population probably just doesn't care about the subject at all. So, or is just not aware of it. There's voter apathy for sure. There's some people that they just don't vote. They don't care. It's going to go this, whatever. It doesn't matter. And this guy's going to make add it to the Constitution that the EU cannot push this migrant crisis on it. So good for them. Need more countries like that. We could start doing that here in Canada too if they want. That said, this is more like 10th Crusade stuff, but there's bombs at a mosque and a cultural center or something like that. The Germans are blaming a far right. I don't think anybody was injured or killed, but you can see it's starting. It's starting. This one's interesting. Hillary Clinton wants to do it. She's like, can't we just do a drone strike on Assad? Okay, Assad is in an embassy somewhere, right? And well, Assad's in there. Let's just strike a foreign country's embassy. How do we get up into all these wars? I wonder, how does that happen? Yeah. This one probably, and I did a video on it last night. I had to actually delete the video because it was a little bit too passionate, and I'm going to do a video on it today. But it looks like the United Nations has control of the keys to the internet. Obama handed it over. Congress let it go through. I don't know what the vote was. Mainstream media, not even talking about it. That's the part that should scare you, because something that big. This goes with Agenda 2030. That's all I hear in Canadian. If you're watching Canadian public parliament, you're going to hear, we're going to do this by 2030, this by 2030. It's all Agenda 2030. Justin Trudeau has 100% adopted the United Nations 2030. He can't give Canada to the United Nations fast enough. Israel stealing oil from the Syrians from the Golan Heights. I guess they're slant drilling or whatever. That's what a lot of we know that if you follow this channel, you know a lot of the wars in the Middle East are about the petrodollar. It is about oil and stuff like that, pipelines, that type of thing. So yeah, so there's people out there screaming about that. Pakistan says it's ready to nuke India. Right now, there's been a lot of tensions between Pakistan and India. There always has been, but it's flared up quite a bit in the past couple of weeks. They basically are, China's like, well, if you guys are going to nuke each other, we're going to stay out of it. Now, that said, strangely enough, the United States isn't on anybody's side on this one for some funny reason, considering that they're supposed to be allies of Pakistan. But yeah, I mean, India has the largest population in the world so far. China follows the number 2. Pakistan might be number 3, I'm not too sure. But if India and Pakistan start nuking the crap balls out of each other over Kashmir there, Kashmir's been going on forever. If that happens, it looks like India will no longer hold the title of most people, because the amount of people that would die in that conflict would be just, wow. Like half the world, a third of the world's population would be gone in a few. Like, you can't even imagine that. Like, it's like, but that's the times we live in. The biggest problem is that if nukes are flying out of India and into Pakistan and vice versa, does it trigger other launches around the world? Like, there's a lot of nuclear countries out there, and detecting those birds in the air. And if one kind of strays and it looks like it's going, let's say one looks like it's going from India to Russia or something like that instead of, or India to Israel or something like that, or Pakistan to Israel. Let's say the missile just kind of, the coordinates kind of go off course. Oh, it's on. Israel then launches, and then, oh my God, Israel's launching at us, well, we'll launch at them. Oh my God, they launched on our poor baby Israel, then the United States launched it, and then they launch. Like, so potential for disaster is like in biblical proportions. And like, it would be the most miraculously perfect fuck up you could ever possibly imagine. Like, yeah, it was a nuke accident. Yeah, don't press the button. Yeah, get off the nuclear weapon. Woohoo, no nukes, no nukes. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I digress. Which brings me, I guess it's going to be a bit of a shorter one, to my last one, and this one's the bigger one. This is the one that, it's not, again, new, but the size of it is spectacular. I think these are the beginning steps of Putin starting to play the crazy man, like North Korea or whatever. Now, speaking of North Korea with its moon mission, I wonder how that one's going to work out. I think what they're doing is they're working on another ballistic rocket, only one that will have the range to get to the United States. I think the North Koreans would be happy if they can just hit us once, or hit the Americans once. They don't care if they get wiped off the map. It'll be the news lady will be like, yes, we got one nuke, so they have 5,000 nukes coming back at us, but it doesn't matter. Our nuke was victorious for victory. That'll be the North Korean weather lady there. She's awesome. I want her to work for our TV. Like, just, let's get back to what I was saying about, okay, mainstream media should be going, the little girl picked up the flower to bring home to her mom. But they go, the little girl picked up the flower to bring it home to her mom. Sensationalized. Fear-mongering. But the North Korean weather lady would be like, the little girl picked up the flower to bring it home to her mom for victory! Yeah, tell me that wouldn't be awesome. Tell me that would not be awesome. You have to see the North Korean. She's been on there for years. I think she's got to be like 100 years old by now. I don't know, but she's been on there for years. She's awesome. Yeah, so we want her. I elect her for mainstream media. Just put anything, like, I don't care if she's talking about how to bake cookies. It's just going to be awesome the way she does it. Yeah, you'll feel victorious when you're baking cookies. The propaganda will be just spectacular. All right, so over in Russia, while in the United States they're trying to get everybody to kill each other, race war, civil war, divide and conquer, people beating up Donald Trump supporters and attacking them and all that kinds of stuff, building walls and keep these people out. We're coming in, we're going to blow you up, we're going to kill you. In Russia, meanwhile in Russia, Colonel Komlev, what if nuclear weapon come towards country? Well, we've got to save our people. Let's have drill. We'll have big drill, massive drill. We'll go all around Moscow. Maybe we'll go to other countries. Maybe St. Petersburg. I don't know. We'll go somewhere. But we'll tell all the people that this drill. Please participate, people. We have enough for 40,000 people in this drill. We'll save you all. Hey, and what is good is population can be sustained without inbreeding with 40,000 people. Hey, lucky number. We just have enough for 40,000 people in Moscow. So yeah, they're doing this massive drill. They do it every year. Air raid siren goes on. People run to these shelters. They clearly label the shelters. The people get to know where all the shelters are and all that. I think they announce it on their TV. Yeah. There's going to be a big drill. Please participate. In an orderly fashion, please. And there's like a crap load of vehicles that are going to be like the size of this drill is okay. Is biblical. Again, like that last drill, 12,000, 125,000. The numbers that were I kept hearing two numbers, but it looks like that last drill was not 12,500 soldiers that went all throughout Russia, which made people in Ukraine think that they were getting ready for a full invasion. No, this is the hello, we're getting ready for war. You might want to consider, wrapping up the diplomacy instead of the war talk. And the Russians clearly, after that last meeting when, again, the blowback of killing 30 of Assad's troops, they killed Russian troops there is the rumor, so that means they killed Russian intelligence there. So, and the fact that the United States is basically not willing to use diplomacy. You always have to use diplomacy, especially when you're dealing with the Russians. So they're saying, no, we're no longer going to have diplomacy with the Russians. So the Russians, they're now, okay, we have to meet force with force. The Americans are a lost cause. They want war with us no matter what. So they have this massive drill. Days after the air attack. And remember, in 2010, Putin said, hey, you know what? The military is going to be on notice for flash drills. And now every time the drill happens, they say, oh, no, we had this planned anyway. Like they do like 5,000 drills a year now, up from something like 1,500 only a couple of years ago to 3,000. Now it's up to 5,000 drills a year. Again, that escalation. But this one also had over 140,000 citizens involved in that last major drill. And then this drill, which is usually maybe a few thousand people, is now 40,000. It's going bigger. So while the United States is trying to get a thermonuclear war to depopulate the world, the Russians, are at least trying to save some of their civilians. Will it work? Who knows? They got food, they've got water, medicines, all kinds of stuff for 40,000 people throughout bomb shelters in, throughout Russia. You know what I mean? Like that's just, you know what I mean? At least revamp the Diefenbunker or something for the people. It's like no. We're not even going to cover this on the mainstream. So that's what the Russians are doing. Now, this also leads me to believe something I've always said, like this whole thing isn't a Russian con. This is why, I'm starting to suspect that Hillary Clinton might be a Soviet spy. Hear me out on this one. It's just the thing every time she fucks up, it benefits Russia. Every time Obama fucks up, it benefits Russia. Now, the Russians and the Chinese would benefit the most if the United States could have a civil war, secession movements, and collapse, an economic collapse. They would just come in and buy it up like that. Okay, not everybody's going to be on it. We know about Soviet sleeper agents. Now, hear me out. The Russians are protecting, obviously these 40,000 people are going to be selected people. I don't believe the Russians, they got their problems, so they've got lots of corruption. I don't believe they're just going to let every man, woman, and child in. I think you need to have a pass to these bunkers. But at least they're putting on the illusion that you might have a chance, you know what I mean? So that's my take on it. But that said, they probably are taking a certain amount of the population in because it's homogeneous anyway. So they'll take in they're probably going to let a lot of women in. Women and children probably, I don't know, but they probably want a lot of single women in there, you know what I mean? But they probably do want a certain amount of children in there too because they're going to be the next generation, And children are actually more adaptable than adults. Adults, especially over the age of 10. Everything up to the age of 10, the world that's the way it's always been. And after the technology, after the age of 10, when you're 10 years old, that's all like new. It seems to be that's the way it is. So kid growing up in a fallout shelter, that's the only world he's going to know. So then if the doors get open and he's like 50 years old, and it's like, okay, the radiation is low enough, we have enough stuff to get to outside the radiation zone. That's going to be like, wow, what an adventure. This is awesome. Oh, look at all these dilapidated buildings. They're beautiful. Awesome. Why, it's not going to know any difference, right? It's all about perspective. But I wonder that if the Russians are doing this to help their people survive, and the Americans are not, if this whole thing is a Russian ploy in the beginning. You never know. You never know. Because almost all the progressives out there are communist. Again, we know where communism kind of comes from. It is a Zionist plan from, way back. All the major communist leaders were Zionists. All of them. So we know that. And the neocon and everything, it's all about war. It all goes back to Zionism. And all this progressive lefty Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff is all, called green communism. You can call if you could call Agenda 21 green communism, green on the outside for environmental, red on the inside for communism. You could call Agenda 2030, and again, I haven't made it through the entire document. I really got to finish up those videos. Just getting time to do it. I got a little bit more. It's very dry material, but we'll call it the gender communist, because everything is about gender equality and we're going to help the poor. But they never do. They never do. What they're really saying is they're going to find ways to rip the resources out of the ground and steal it from the people through genocide. That's kind of what's going on. But that said, if that is the destroy the country from within, that's the ultimate war plan for Russia. We'll get them to destroy themselves. That's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy from within is my make me very happy. So you never know. That's why, and again, we could see how pushing for war will benefit Russia in the sense of, if they could save their population, come up from the rubble, they've got a population. 40,000 people isn't very much, but there would be no more useless eaters, like Latimer Len said. He was ecstatic when 20,000 people starved to death, or 20 million people starved to death, so that they didn't have any more useless eaters. Did the ideology really change that much? Who knows? And the fact that these people at the United Nations, they're all genocidal. Henry Kissinger's, depopulating the third world should be our first priority. Why not just leave the third world to its own devices? If you don't like them, leave them alone. If you don't want to do business with them, don't do business with them. You don't need to kill them. You know, if they have too many children, they can't feed them. That's on them. You can help out a bit, but making people dependent on the World Food Organization. As soon as there's a food shortage, these people starve to death. Even if you don't like them, there's no excuse to be cruel. That type of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still wondering about that. I wonder that. It's just Clinton selling, using uranium one up here in Canada, selling uranium to the Russians. Why would you sell uranium to the Russians, and then complain about their nuclear arsenal? You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. Yeah. All the uranium deal that Canada's got going under the Harper, $2 billion or whatever in uranium to India. When India and Pakistan are on the verge of a war of their own, selling weapons, Canada selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. It'd be like none of this makes sense from a logical point of view. So anyway, I just thought that drill though. Again, you're going to see more. It's more sensationalism, I get, but the idea that they do try to help their public. Now in the States it's different because the cities are much bigger and there is no fallout shelters. So FEMA camps aren't fallout shelters. They're not even close. They're above ground. They're not going to work. So the U.S. doesn't have a plan to take care of its citizens. You're on your own. Canada, same thing. They do have bunkers for Canadian elite. Don't kid yourself. I believe it's up around Meech Lake is the rumors I heard, but that's just a rumor. I don't know. The Defen bunker is now a tourist attraction. And it probably wouldn't work as well as they think it would. The reason why they abandoned the Defen bunker was after closer inspection that the size wasn't the problem, but it was the idea that no, it would not have kept. It was too. Number one is Carp is too close to Ottawa. I think it's in Carp. Yeah, it's too close to Ottawa, so they need to get further than that. But I can imagine they could use the Defen bunker for certain things. It would probably, definitely. Lower level guys could probably go there and they might survive a little bit longer. But you really don't want to be in that radiation zone. And again, I'm close to, Ottawa is the capital of Canada, not Toronto, Ottawa. So that means, should nukes fly, there's one going there. And all my friends and family that I have down there that I love, would not be safe. They would not be safe. And the other problem people have is people like me, okay, I could tell this to all my friends and family. They already think I'm nuts enough as it is. They're not going to believe it. So, you have to look at it as, that's one thing I think the prepper dilemma is that nobody thinks what you're talking about is ever going to happen. But some people, I think a lot more people are starting to catch on to it. The civil race war, which is being manufactured in the States, it's not about being racist and bigot pointing this out. It's like, can you not see the writing on the wall? Today, it's somebody stealing Trump signs and beating up Trump supporters. Tomorrow, it's something else. Today in Sweden, for example, or not today, but yesterday, the day before, in Sweden, there's an article from a prominent Steinsteiner Berg, Trotskyite, and why I call them Trotskyites, I used to call them communists and Marxists, but now they're really showing themselves as Trotskyites. In Sweden, there's I forget the name of the family, but they own a lot of mainstream media, newspapers and TV and stuff like that. And a lady wrote an article of how to get rid of right-wing rats. And basically genocide them, put them in ovens, that type of thing. You can't make this stuff up. But today it's just a funny little tongue-in-cheek article. Tomorrow it gets put into practice, right? And we see this time and time throughout history. And it gets put into practice by guys just following orders. Remember, rifle on the ground, step back. Sorry, cannot comply. Unlawful order. You do have that right. Yes, you might you might get kicked out of the military. But then trust me. Getting kicked out of the military for disobeying to open fire on your citizens or go to a thermonuclear war is the highest medal honor you'll ever get. Humanity will thank you. Now, we got enough guys to do this. There's a very few times this has ever happened in history, but we need Eastern Bloc stand-downs and Iceland solutions everywhere. If you don't know about the Eastern Bloc stand-down, it's when the Berlin Wall was going to come down, and they said, anybody that crosses, the order was given to shoot to kill, and they refused the order. And people crossed from East Germany to West Germany. It was beautiful. And that doesn't happen easily. Because most people will just follow orders. Even if, well, no, I'm doing it for my. They'll find ways to rationalize it. They'll find ways. Well, I have to do it because these are the terrorists. I know they're just Trump protesters, but we have to kill them because they're potential terrorists. You know what I mean? That type of thing. That's what they're going for. And if you're the guy that has to pull the trigger on that, again, the world elites never have to fight. Why should the rich go out to fight? They save that role for the poor. Ozzy Osbourne rules. Black Sabbath. There we go. But it's true. It's true. None of the world elites are going to be, Prince Edward's or Prince Harry's. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be. You're not going to get your Black Knights out there. You will not have the Black Knight out there. Maybe a few, but any of the elites like George Bush. I mean, yeah, he was an aircraft carrier pilot, but he didn't do it. Now George Bush Sr., yes, he flew Avengers in World War II, but he wasn't prominent then. And again, how. Did he ever do any raids on Japanese harbors? I don't know. Or Japanese warships? I don't know. That type of thing. John McCain, yeah, okay, he flew over Vietnam. Very few of these guys. Actually. But John McCain also got like 200 people killed, on an aircraft carrier. Flame Out McCain, they used to call him. Yeah. So these guys are very few and far between. And some of them, they just happen to get into the right circle later on. But for the ones that are there now, like again, you're not going to see a Rothschild or a Rockefeller on the front line anywhere, unless it's way over somewhere that's nowhere near the front line. You know what I mean? You're just not going to see that, and that should be taken into account. I think every world leader around the world should pledge their children as soldiers. If there's a war, they're the first battalion in. They're the first ones in. Doesn't matter how bad the conflict it is. If we sign on to this war, you sign with the agreement that you're sending your children as soon as they're of age to fight. And if they're not of age to fight on that, they go in the front lines. Front lines is a line cook. No, front lines, rifle in hand, you're going over the wall. You're going over the trench. That'll show if these neocons really believe in war or not. I'm sure the politicians, their wives would kill them if they sent their, lovely Will or Kate into battle. You know what I mean? And male and female too. Make them both go. If you do this to the world elites, then they start to question this whole concept of war. They'll find other ways to scam the system without trying to get us all killed. And again, the number one threat to humanity, in my opinion, is thermonuclear war. Oppenheimer, I'll just leave you with the famous words of Oppenheimer. When he saw the first mushroom cloud and that thermonuclear weapon going up, that fusion, that bright flash, you had the big, goggles, probably with a shade of 20 on there, and he saw that first. And he sees this mushroom cloud goes up, and the concussion wave goes by, and there's just destroys everything. And he goes, "I become death, the destroyer of worlds." And that it comes from a Hindu. Back when people used to read, they used to be cultured because they used to be able to read, and that was a line out of it: "The destroyer of worlds. I become death, the destroyer of worlds." And that was God Shiva. I think that was the god that he was referring to. And I think, and he went very depressed after that because he understood what he had done. He understood that this is going to kill people, and lots of them. Einstein, love him or hate him. Einstein, I think, when he said he didn't know what weapons would be used in World War III, but he knew World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. I would like to quote, "Don't worry about World War IV." You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. We're not going to make it that far. World War III. I mean, yes, I know we said it twice before, the war to end all wars, but we didn't say it in the nuclear age. But yeah, World War III, that's the threat to humanity. Will people survive? In pockets, but life as we know it, no. Who knows? But out of the ashes always comes a new phoenix. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Next that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself, be true to others. Always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. G'day, hi, and welcome. All right. So my new kind of strategy for my channel, I think, has been actually helping out a bit. Now if we can only get internet that works properly. It's so slow right now. It's slow at the hall, it's slow at the house here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's like it's very unreliable internet. But anyway, that said, it doesn't mean I can't get information out to you guys. I guess when it comes to the World War III thing, when it rains, it pours kind of thing. And like my hat. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so I'll just jump into it. And anyway, yeah, there's quite a bit going on. Yeah, so we have 11 Afghani soldiers missing as international troops. Now these guys, they came in a couple of months ago or whatever to the States as foreign exchange troops. Basically, these guys are come to the States. They're part of the Iraqi military. They're going to basically train up and then go back to Iraq. And 11 of them, I don't know how many there was in total, but 11 of them, they're somewhere in the States. They went AWOL. So yeah, so on your next attack, think of them, S&P 500, 6 quarters negative. Now again, I'm not a financial guy. I don't really, and sometimes people ask me, Reg, do you recommend gold, silver, and stuff like that? I'm more of a bread and bullets type of guy. I don't make the recommendations because I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I can really go wrong with bread and bullets type, food and ammunition, because I know ammunition is always tradable. Ammunition will probably have 130-06 shell will probably have more value than a gold bar when people are starving to death, right? So I can go into the bush, load my rifle, drop a deer, feed myself, providing I can find a deer. What am I going to do with a gold bar? Yeah, you can kill a deer with a gold bar. I'm sure it's heavy enough, but you got to get too close. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So bread and bullets is kind of, I know the common man will trade on that. That said, for people invested in these big Fortune 500 companies, now myself, the only investments I got was from not my last job, but the few jobs before that. The company I worked for, they had a deferred profit sharing, and you couldn't touch it until you retired. And so that's still in there. Now, I'm not counting on that at all to be there, when I retire. To give you just to give you an idea, and I can't touch it, so it's not money I have, it's locked in till 65 or 64 or whatever year it's locked into. When I left the company, I had $25,000 over 7.5 years saved up. Now, it's not that I saved it up; it's the profit sharing thing that I was talking about. They did this for every person in the company. They'd take a proportion of the profit sharing, and they'd give you a nice bonus in cash, but they would, because the owner was like, people will take the cash, they're going to go blow it on whatever, but they won't save for the retirement. So it was kind of, think of the company kind of saving you from yourself. It's like, no, we're going to lock this in so you can't touch it till you retire. So we'll be thanking them when we retire if we would have been if the economy was the way it was. So anyway, that's in there. So from $25,000, it's now down to 18. So it's it's not doing quite so well. Now, I did make one withdrawal that I was able to make with it, and you can make one withdrawal a year, I think, with it. And, there was the proportion that I could withdraw, I already took out, because I was like, well, if I'm going to lose it all anyway, at least if by some miracle chance it's going to be there when I'm in the future, that'd be great. But another 6 quarters down, how much more does it drop? Again, people's retirement, the stock market, the banks, that's what they're doing, is they're ripping your retirement away. With bail-ins and bailouts. And if you haven't seen what's going on with Deutsche Bank and all that stuff, that all plays into the war. That's why we're getting into the wars, because these things are insolvent, right? October surprise. I did a video on the October surprise. Don't know if it already came out yet or not. But I did October surprise, or what surprise, or whatever. Or, I can't remember what it is. October surprise, I think it's also called it. And, I mean, if you're not surprised at the stuff you're seeing now, I don't know what could possibly surprise you. I mean, we're already in a world of lunacy. I just don't remember ever seeing anything in my time, or even reading about this kind of bizarreness, even in history. The stuff that's going on is just, it's new. It does seem kind of new. Which keeps it interesting. I don't really care what's happening on the mainstream media at all. I might watch the odd TV show once in a while. The TV's more for my dad. My dad watches TV. I watch the internet. But there's not a show I can find on TV that's as interesting as reality. And the scary part is that how scary reality can actually be. But anyway, moving along. So the October surprise, there's so many angles that could be taken from. Will something happen? I don't know. I don't like to say stuff like that because, oh, there's going to be a false flag in October. Because you don't know, and I don't think everything we see is a false flag. I think a lot of it is orchestrated, sure. But there's a lot of it, I think, is just blowback, like Ron Paul was talking about. I mean, again, if somebody bombed your family, you're going to take up arms in revenge against that. You know, you're not going to see it as, oh, thank you for your democracy, JDEMs. Of course you're going to take up arms in revenge. You're not going to be cared if you're called a terrorist. You know what I mean? Like that's it's not going to matter. All you want to do is avenge your family, and you know, really, that's it's a predictable response. So I think anything's possible, and then of course with all the divide and conquer, that part you could, if you go into the long con of it, yes, it's all false flags. I mean, these terrorist attacks and stuff like that wouldn't happen if they didn't arm the terrorists in the first place, if they didn't bomb other people's countries in the first place with the blowback. Like, it's all orchestrated. They know this is going to happen, and they assess this stuff before they do it. So it is a problem, reaction, solution. So could lead to an October surprise, a December surprise, a November surprise. You know, all I say is we're just living in interesting times. Be ready for anything at any time, right? Moving along, Obama has now spent way more on the nuclear arsenal in history. You know, you know, Nobel Peace Prize winners also created more war than anybody else. Now, that said, I don't know why my handwriting's so... I write this thing when I'm in the car. I gotta get a good clipboard. I don't have to do that. Anyway, I don't know what I wrote there. So, but yeah, so we see the ramping up of the nuclear weapons. Like, I mean, even under the Bush years, as bad as Bush was for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, starting all that stuff. On one front, the nuclear, you know, agreement that they had, and George Bush Sr. had with Gorbachev, you know, to limit both sides to 1,600